All right. Well, hello all and happy American Wind Week 2020. We are thrilled to be here with all of you, virtually, of course. So thank you for taking the time to join us for today's virtual turbine climb and wind farm tour. My name is Allie, and I'm on the HR team here at Apex Clean Energy, and I will be your host for today's event. We expect to be together for about 30 action-packed minutes, and we've saved a good portion of that time for your questions. So if at any point during today's tour you do have a question, feel free to go ahead and submit that on the Facebook live stream. Our team is looking forward to answering as many of your questions as possible, so let's get started. Today's American Wind Week theme is essential workforce. As we are all very aware, we are in the midst of a global pandemic, with many communities and families being irrevocably impacted. We are all incredibly grateful during this time for our frontline workers, those who are critical to the COVID-19 response, doctors, nurses, and we are also grateful for those delivering essential public services, social workers, public transportation employees, grocery store workers, and as you may or may not recognize, many wind workers are also on the front lines. Electricity, it's a necessity, it's not a luxury. While the power that warms up my cup of coffee every morning, now that's a luxury. The power required to keep hospitals, schools, vets, doctors' offices, and stores with critical supplies open, that's a necessity. So wind workers are there working to provide the necessary electricity to keep the lights on regardless of the pandemic we are facing. And across the country, there are more than 120,000 people working in wind energy to make sure that the lights stay on every single day, powered by affordable, reliable, clean energy. More than 26,000 of those workers, of those US workers, are in manufacturing, and wind turbine technician is the second fastest growing career in the US, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. Not only is the industry making sure that we don't lose power, it's also providing and creating jobs at a time when the global economy is struggling, and every job counts. This is also true for our returning veterans. The US wind industry is employing veterans at a rate 61% higher than the national average, providing amazing opportunities for the men and women who serve our country as they leave active duty. So, in an effort to showcase the efforts of our essential workforce, we wanted to take you to a wind farm that Apex operates up in Eastern Illinois. So get excited because we are all going to get to climb a real deal wind turbine together to see how these impressive machines run. And of course, we're not actually going to be climbing them. Our loyal and faithful facility manager is going to be doing the hard work for us. So we can all be grateful to get to sit back and relax from the comfort of our homes while his healthy lungs and strong legs get to climb this turbine. And I will tell you, these turbines are no joke. They're on average 300 feet high and over 95 degrees during the middle of summer. So without further ado, I would like to introduce everybody to our facility manager, the very man that's at the top of this turbine for us, Curtis Radke. Curtis has been in the wind industry for over 21 years. I'm also pleased to introduce you to Dalton Carr, a development manager with Apex. Dalton will be speaking a little bit later about his role on the Apex team, which will provide additional insights as to how a site like this one that we're going to visit actually comes to fruition. It's an incredible process and very intricate, so I'm very excited to hear from Dalton later. And finally, again, for anyone just joining, my name is Allie, and I'm on the HR team here at Apex Clean Energy, and I manage both the recruiting and learning functions. So without further ado, let's get a tour of the wind farm and climb this turbine.
Hi, I am Curtis Radke, the facility manager for Apex Clean Energy. I am at a wind farm in Eastern Illinois. I will give you a short tour. Welcome to the Operations and Maintenance Building. This is where all the technicians and everybody reports to every morning to discuss the plan of the day, do our stretch and bends. Give you a short tour. The O&M building is our on-site office. This is where our wind turbine techs and our managers work day to day, and it provides a great space for meetings with folks visiting the wind farm to see our operations. This is our wind farm. It roughly covers 26 square miles, and each turbine is 2 megawatts, and that is enough electricity by each turbine for 400 homes. So each turbine could individually power a small town. Welcome to our substation. The electricity from the wind turbines will be collected to our main transformer, and that main transformer will push the power to the off-taker and put it on the local grid. And this is our main substation yard. That is our main breaker. That's our connect and disconnect to the grid. It's about 34,500 volts. We are now at the base of the wind turbine, and our wind turbines are 300 feet tall, and our ladder is connected straight up. So it's a 300-foot climb straight up. As you can see, it is a heck of a workout to make it up to the top. Typically, we would go through a lengthy safety briefing with anyone who is going to climb a turbine. Luckily for all of you, that's not required for virtual climbs. But there's a lot that goes into making sure we're safe while climbing. So let's lace up our steel-toed shoes and let's head inside and get ready. As you can see, there is no fencing around the turbine, but this door stays locked for safety to ensure no unauthorized individuals can get inside. And we have electrical equipment. This is our controller that controls the wind turbine. And here is our ladder, our access point to the nacelle up top. As you can see, it is straight up in the air. We will now put our safety gear on and climb the tower. It takes about 10 minutes to get from the bottom of the turbine to the top, only if you're in pretty good shape. We're switching to voice over here, so you can't tell how out of breath I am. But believe me, climbing is a great upper body workout. Most first-time climbers are really sore after going up tower. Now that I'm getting up to the nacelle, I'm going to go ahead and beam you over to one of my colleagues on our asset management team who works in Apex's Remote Operations Control Center in Charlottesville, Virginia, about 690 miles from here. Lee will take good care of you, and I'll see you in a few minutes right back here.
Thanks, Curtis, and welcome everybody to the Remote Operations and Control Center here at Apex's headquarters in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm Lee Stouter. I'm the manager of what we call the Rock. This is where we oversee all of the assets that are under our management, both wind and solar in the US and in Canada. There is always, every hour of every day, all year long, at least one operator in this room. As you can imagine, in a remote operations center, we are gathering lots of data from all of our sites. We have upwards of 100,000 data points coming in every few seconds. In addition to watching the equipment and making sure that it's performing at its potential, we're also watching for warnings. If we can see a condition arising that we're able to mitigate and take care of early to avoid downtime in the future, then we want to make sure that we do that. One of our most important jobs that we're doing from this room is actually supporting the guys on the ground, like Curtis and the teams out at each site that are actually turning the wrenches. That's a glimpse here into our operations center in Charlottesville. Now let's see how Curtis is doing getting up tower. Curtis?
Hello, everyone. I am currently up tower, and I will give you a... Hello, everyone. Currently up tower, I will give you a short tour of the wind turbine nacelle. There we go. This is our blades. Actually, I'll give you the view first. 300 feet in the air. And that is our wind turbine blades. On this turbine, they're roughly 150 feet. And the blades are what harness the energy of wind and turn it into electricity. And this is our hydraulic station. that a hydraulic station is what controls the blades, pitches them back and forth to capture the wind. And the blades are connected to the hub and connected to the main shaft here. And then that connects to the gearbox. So as the blades pitch down, capture the wind, the rotor starts turning, and it starts turning the main shaft in the gearbox. And that gearbox is coupled to our generator. So this is our generator here. So as we get more and more RPM with rated winds, it'll start to excite the generator. And then the generator's producing DC power, and then our converter here converts that DC power into AC power, and it pushes the electricity onto the grid. And then that's our main transformer room in the back, where it collects the energy and pushes it to our substation. And the big yellow box, that is our winch for cabling, hoisting up tools up and down tower. And that's the general overview of our nacelle. Over
Hey,
to
Curtis.
you, Allie.
Thanks, Curtis.
Yes.
That was great. What I have a question for you. How big is this nacelle? I can't really tell from our perspective.
It is about the size of a large school bus, is how much room there is up here.
Oh, wow. And how often do you actually have to climb the turbines?
The wind turbine technicians, they climb daily. For asset management Apex, we climb 2 to 3 per month.
Oh, wow. And my last question, Curtis, is why do you have to transform the power from one type to another before it can go back down tower?
Because it's AC power is what our grid is. So we have to sync, the power from the generator to make it, feasible to push the electricity on the grid. So it has to be synced up before we can push any power out.
Awesome. Thank you, Curtis. Thanks for climbing the tower for us and being up there in that hot school bus of a nacelle. We appreciate it. Dalton, I'm turning it over to you now.
Thanks, Allie. Hey, everyone. Thanks. I'm Dalton Carr. I'm excited to be here today for my first tower climb. Climbing a turbine from the comfort of home has certainly been exhilarating. This is the only way I can keep my cool for some Q&A. So just a little bit about me. I came to renewable energy out of some interest in making a difference. Renewable energy is in many ways on the frontier of 21st century problem solving. And at Apex, we're like pioneers. Our many teams develop projects from ideas into operating wind and solar projects. And it's an exciting time to be driving this change. I've been a developer at Apex for 5 years. And in that time, my primary focus has been Ohio, although I've had some project and involvement in Indiana and Kentucky. So briefly, what does it mean to be a developer? Folks like Curtis manage our operating projects, but before they can actually be operated, they have to be built. There are many teams at Apex that work for years and years to get projects designed, permitted, and constructed. This is quite a complicated and lengthy process, admittedly not as long as the 25 or 30 years that Curtis will be operating the wind farm, but still it takes quite some time. Development and construction of a project like these can take anywhere from 3 to 10 years. 3 if you're very efficient, 10 if you're more like me. As a developer, it's my job to take projects from an idea to a permitted, ready-to-build asset. And there are many steps involved, of course. First, we work with our in-house experts and some third-party consultants to study and vet any potential projects we're looking at. This involves doing different kinds of environmental studies, studying the wind resource in an area, evaluating impacts to local airspace, studying the strength of the electric grid in the area, figuring out the best potential layout for the turbines. And that's just to name a few. Of course, there are many, many more aspects we look at for these projects. This work continues throughout the development period, that 3 to 10 year period we talked about. Now, once we determine that the project site looks viable, we begin leasing land for turbines and other facilities and start working with local organizations and officials to inform them about the project and take their feedback. Throughout the process, we work to drive community participation and answer questions from local stakeholders about the wind project. And as you can understand, a lot of people have never seen a wind farm before. So they naturally have all sorts of questions about the development process, what the turbines look like, how they'll benefit their community, all sorts of things. Now, before we can build the project, we need to get the proper approvals, and those can vary from location to location. No matter what is required, though, the developer is responsible for ensuring that the project secures all of these permits from local, state, federal regulators. And if we're successful with all of these things, we'll deliver a project that's ready for construction. Now, overall, a developer has to be a very good problem solver, just like Curtis. Over the course of development, I'm tasked with identifying risks that my projects might face, and that could be anything. You've got environmental, engineering, financial, resource risks, and I work with my teams to avoid or mitigate those risks. The location has to be right, the community has to be interested in hosting the project, and we have to navigate many layers of permitting a utility scale project anywhere in the country. All of this, of course, takes years to do, but at the end, we find it incredibly rewarding to see a project that we developed giving back to the community, creating jobs, generating tens of millions of dollars in local tax revenue and landowner payments. Now, to be fair, not every project we develop is built, but it's a developer's goal to see someone like Curtis operating a wind project that was only an idea just a few years before. So that's what it's like to be a developer. And after seeing Curtis's view after climbing the tower, I don't mind having the more boring job. I can't get 10 feet above the ground without panic setting in. So I'm looking forward to answering any questions out there. So please feel free, write your questions in the Facebook chat and we'll try to get them answered. Allie, I'll send it back over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dalton. Well, we do have quite a few questions coming in, which is exciting. So I will direct them. Let's see. We have a question from Linda. Curtis, this one's for you. What is the output of the generator? What is the voltage?
The voltage of the output of the generator is 690 volts AC. It's 690 volts. And then it connects to the converts it, transformer, it's 34,500 volts. So we're taking 690 and stepping it up to 34,500 volts.
Awesome. Thanks, Curtis. Curtis, I got another one for you from Peter. Last time I climbed a turbine, it was using Windows 95. Has the operating system been updated?
Yes, it has. So we're, I'm not, I believe, Windows 98 has been used quite a bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. I'm glad we've updated from Windows 95. That's a good step in the right direction. Yeah. I love it. A question, Dalton, this one's for you. I never see high voltage power lines exiting a turbine site. Are the cables buried?
Yes, you've in a way answered your own question. So all of these turbines are connected through an underground web of collection cables between all of the turbines. And at some point within the project, usually near the edge of the project, we'll have a substation where all these underground cables come together and meet at that substation.
Perfect. There's a question from Kim for me. It's so exciting. What is an entry-level position someone might apply for? Kim, great question. And what's exciting about the renewable energy industry is that there is a vast multitude of different types of roles that you can get involved in. Like I mentioned earlier, the wind turbine technician is the second fastest growing job in the US. And so that's a great place to start if something along those engineering lines is of interest. In addition, I mean, in order to get one of these sites built, just like Dalton was alluding to, it requires a slew of experts from development team to engineering, to our legal team, to accounting, to HR professionals. And so kind of pending, what your interest is, there is a place for you in the renewable energy industry. And my biggest advice would be to do some homework and figure out what types of companies are providing these different types of services. And you'll find a niche there to find an entry-level position at a lot of these companies. A question for Dalton. How long does a wind turbine last?
So we usually anticipate that a wind turbine itself, the structure will last around 30 years. And that's of course with regular maintenance, folks like Curtis heading up these towers and ensuring that these are operating at maximum efficiency and as well as they can be. And so I guess I might defer to Curtis to talk about some of those things that we do to ensure that these mechanics are running the way that they should be?
Yes, it's about 20, 30 years, and some of the really, the old projects, 20-year-old projects I've worked on, we have been doing repowering. So they'll use the same foundation. They'll test the foundation, make sure the foundations are still good, and they'll put brand new blades and brand new nacelles and everything on the tower, and then the tower will actually make more power too with the repowering. So that's the outlook. As these wind turbine sites age, there's always the possibility of a repower.
Fabulous. Curtis, we got another one for you. What do the controls at the top of the turbine actually control?
The controls up tower, you have to bring your own controller up tower. So if they're talking the converter is just converting the DC into AC. But as far as the controls up tower, we bring our own controller up tower, and then we plug into the PLC. So all the controls on the wind turbine are PLC driven.
Curtis, we got more questions for you. People are very interested in what you're doing up there. So they would like to know, the nacelle is as big as a school bus, but it looks pretty cramped. But it looks pretty cramped. I'm sorry, this question is two parts. How do you tighten the larger bolts?
We use hydraulic torquing equipment. So High Torque's a brand name we used a lot, Alcatronics. So we have to use hydraulic torquing equipment to be able to reach the amount of force needed to torque those bolts.
Awesome. And Curtis, here's another one. What happens to the turbines when lightning strikes?
We have a grounding system. So the grounding system goes all the way to the tip of the blade. So if the lightning does strike the blade or the nacelle, it's all grounded, and the turbine just stays online, and the energy from the lightning strike just goes to ground.
Awesome. Curtis, stay on the line. Can you climb the turbine when it's moving?
No. Yeah, during the climb, and as you're climbing down and as you're in the nacelle, you keep the wind turbine shut off.
All right, we've got some more. Let's see. Sorry, I just lost my place. Do the blades pitch, and how does that work, Curtis?
Yes, the blades pitch down. Currently, right now, they are at pitch back to 90 degrees. And then when you put the turbine into run, the blades will pitch down to 0 degrees. And then if the winds are over, the 26, 28 mile an hour, the blades will pitch back. So the turbine maintains the correct speed on the generator and the rotor. So that way, the wind turbine does not overspeed.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, Dalton, you're up. Is there a standard separation between turbines in a field?
Not quite a standard, but there are a number of factors that come into play. So you don't want a turbine taking resource from another wind turbine. It may take some time for wind to regather itself and become quite as strong as a force by the time it hits the next wind turbine. So generally, you're going to want at least about 1,000 feet between turbines of this size.
Awesome. Dalton, again for you, what types of jobs are created within the community?
So that's an interesting question. You have a number of direct jobs, so operations work that someone like Curtis would do. Now that might just be around 10 or 20 folks, depending on the size of the project. But then you have a slew of construction jobs during the process of erecting these turbines, burying the cables that connect all these turbines, building the substation, the roads, and all the facilities that are associated with the wind farm. You then have an influx of tax dollars. So with that influx of tax dollars, that influx of business in the area, you have jobs that are created in a tertiary way. So there are a number of ways that local economy is impacted through direct jobs, through additional money, but the project certainly makes a difference with the local community.
Awesome, thank you. Curtis, this question is for you. What is it like working on the front lines during a pandemic?
Who was that for?
Curtis, that one was for you.
During the pandemic, we have our masks, and then we keep our distance from each other too, the best we can, and then sanitizing the O&M building. So there's hand sanitizer, soap, everything. So we do everything we can to minimize our exposures. And then also, if you're sick or not feeling well, you stay home and do what you can to not expose your teammates.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Curtis, for being on the front lines. We appreciate it. Curtis, again, a few more for you. How strong does the wind have to be to produce power?
3 meters a second is so about 6 to 7 miles an hour is when we can start producing electricity.
Awesome. And another one, Curtis, for you. In the winter time, do you have to climb the outside of the tower?
No, the inside, we are always climbing on the inside of the tower.
Okay, awesome. And I think we have time for maybe these last two. This is for Curtis. I might mess this up. I'm not an engineer, and this looks like a very technical question. So here we go. As a longtime electrician, I have some technical questions. I don't even know how to ask this question. Brushless DC generator, DC voltage to inverter, AC voltage from inverter.
We have brushes on our slip ring. So our generator on the end of the generator, we got the slip ring, and we do use brushes. We don't have brushless.
I hope that answered your question, Curtis, because I don't even know that was an answer. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have a question from one of our families at Turning the Page. This is for Dalton. What happens if there isn't enough wind?
There isn't enough wind, then the wind turbines aren't turning. As we know, wind isn't constant. It is predictable, but it's not constant. And so when there's no wind to be had, the wind turbines aren't turning, and you're not necessarily producing electricity. The same goes for solar. If there are clouds, you're not producing solar energy. So that's why, for many reasons, wind is a great addition to the electric grid. It's an opportunity to produce clean energy and add it to the reservoir of the many ways we produce power. So it's complementary in a number of ways. It's a great way to add power to the grid. But you're right, it won't always be windy, won't always be sunny. So it takes a number of different solutions to get renewable energy projects on the grid in a way that ensures we have power all the time.
Awesome. All right, I think we have time for one more. This is another one from our family at Turning the Page. Dalton, this one's for you. Will you take down the towers when their useful life is over?
Yes. So we're obligated in every case to decommission the wind farms. So what that means is at the end of its useful life, we're required to remove the tower, the blades, the power lines, everything you can see is going to be gone. And that's done at the end of the life, of course. So in many states, you have bonds that you put forward to ensure that the funds are there. You have a number of ways to ensure that these projects will be removed, and you won't have non-used turbines just sitting out there for the rest of time.
Love it. Okay, there's two more questions that are really interesting that I really want you guys to answer. So Dalton, another one. Let's see, where did it go? Oh, I'm sorry, Curtis, this one's for you. Does the wind turn the blade, or is it a motor?
The wind turns the blade. So the blade is, it's like an airplane wing, so it produces lift. So when you pitch the blade down, the wind hitting the blade will produce lift and start turning the rotor, and then the rotor, turns the generator, and then we can start making electricity.
Awesome. And Curtis, this last one's for you as well. Do you get tired when you climb ladder?
Yes. I'm not young anymore.
Curtis, I have a question for you. How many times do you think you've climbed a wind turbine in your 21 plus years?
I got it estimated about 2,500.
That's amazing. I was going to guess far less than that. That's incredible. Awesome. Well, thank you, Dalton. Thank you, Curtis. Curtis, thanks again for being on the front lines for us. We really appreciate all the power. I had a great cup of coffee this morning, so I really appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We had a great time, and I hope we got to answer most of your questions. If anything else comes along, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll try to answer it after the event. Thank you all, and have a great American Wind Week.